Women and the novel. Many people got worried about the effects of novel on readers. The imaginary world of the novel was alarming, and many felt that there may be an adverse effect on the public. Some of them wrote in newspapers and magazines advising people to stay away from the immoral influence of novels. Some parents kept novels in the lofts in their houses, out of their children's reach. Young people often read them in secret. This passion for reading novels was not limited only to the youth. Older women who could not read listened with fascinated attention to popular Tamil novels read out to them by their grandchildren. Soon, they also began to write novels. In some languages, the early creations of women were poems, essays, or autobiographical pieces. A reason for the popularity of novels among women was that it allowed for a new conception of womanhood. Some women authors also wrote about women who changed the world of both men and women. Rokeya Hossein was a reformer who, after she was widowed, started a girls' school in Calcutta. She wrote a satiric fantasy in English called Sultana's Dream. Which shows a topsy-turvy world in which women take the place of men. Her novel, Padmarag, also showed the need for women to reform their condition by their own actions. In the 20th century, Sailabala Ghosh Jaya, a popular novelist, could only write because her husband protected her. Rokeya Hossein and her popular novel Sultana's Dream. Caste practices, lower caste and minorities. Novels were written about the marriage practices of upper caste Hindus in Kerala. These novels influenced the views of the younger generation in Kerala. They wanted new laws regarding marriage and property. The story of Indulekha is interesting in the light of these debates. Srinivas, the foolish landlord who comes to marry Indulekha, is the focus of much satire in the novel. The intelligent heroine rejects him and chooses Madhavan, the educated and handsome Nair, as her husband. The young couple move to Madras, where Madhavan joins the civil service. Srinivas, desperate to find a partner for himself, finally marries a poorer relation from the same family and goes away pretending that he was married to Indulekha. Chandu Menon clearly wanted his readers to appreciate the new roles of his hero and heroine and criticize the ignorance and immorality of Srinivas. Potheri Kunjambu, a lower caste writer from North Kerala. Let us see his writings. Potheri Kunjambu wrote a novel called Saraswativijayam in 1892, mounting a strong attack on caste oppression. This novel shows a young man from an untouchable caste leaving his village to escape the cruelty of his Brahmin landlord. He converts to Christianity, obtains modern education, and returns as the judge in the local court. Saraswativijayam stresses the importance of education for the upliftment of the lower caste. Adavita Malabarman's Titash Ekti Nadir Naam is an epic about the Mallas, a community of fish folk who earn a living by fishing in the river Titash. Adavita Malabarman's Titash Ekti Nadir Naam is an epic about the Mallas, a community of fish folk who earn a living by fishing in the river Titash. The novel describes the community life of the Mallas in great detail, their Holi and Kali Puja festivals, boat races, Patiali songs, the relationships of friendship and animosity with the peasants, and the oppression of the upper caste. The medium of the novel made room for the experiences of communities that had not received much space in the literary scene earlier. Vaikum Muhammad Bashir was one of the early Muslim writers to gain wide renown as a novelist in Malayalam. Bashir had little formal education. Most of his works were based on his own rich personal experience rather than on books from the past. Bashir left home to take part in the Salt Satyagraha. Bashir's short novels and stories were written in the ordinary language of conversation. Bashir's novels spoke about details from the everyday life of Muslim households. He also brought poverty, insanity and life in prisons into Malayalam writings. Here we can see Adavita Mallavarman, his famous writing Ek Din Adin Naam, and here is Muhammad Bashir, the famous Muslim novelist. The Nation and its History. During the colonial period, Indians were depicted as weak, divided and dependent on the British. These histories could not satisfy the taste of new Indian administrators and intellectuals. The intellectual Indian was not happy with the traditional Puranic stories of the past. Indians now wanted to read novels which showed Indians as independent and brave. In Bengal, many historical novels were about Marathas and Rajputs. These novels produce a sense of pan-Indian belonging. They imagine the nation to be full of adventure, heroism, romance and sacrifice, qualities that could not be found in the offices and streets of the 19th century world. Budhe Mukhopadhyay's Anguriya Binimoy was the first historical novel written in Bengal. The hero of this novel, Shivaji, engages in many battles against a clever and treacherous Aurangzeb. Man Singh persuades Shivaji to make peace with Aurangzeb. The daring travels of Shivaji were welcomed by the readers. The imagination of the novel was so powerful that it could inspire actual political movements. Bankim's Anandamath is a novel about a secret Hindu militia that fights Muslims to establish a Hindu kingdom. Many of these novels also reveal the problems of thinking about the nation. Budhe Mukhopadhyay, he wrote the first historical novel in Bengal, and Anandamath by Bankim Chattopadhyay. The novel and nation making. The heroic past portrayed in the novels helped in bringing about a sense of belonging to a common nation. Novels included various classes in the novel so that they could be seen to belong to a shared world. Premchand's novels, for instance, are filled with all kinds of powerful characters drawn from all levels of society. Aristocrats and landlords, middle-class peasants and landless labourers, middle-class professionals, and people from the margins of society feature in his novels. The women characters are strong individuals, especially those who come from the lower classes and are not modernized. Premchand rejected the ancient history and looked towards the future without forgetting the importance of the past. Premchand's characters created a community based on democratic values. The central character of his novel, Rangbhumi, that means the arena, Surdas, is a visually impaired beggar from a so-called untouchable caste. The characterization has made the lives of the most oppressed section of society as worthy of liberty reflection. We see Surdas struggling against the forcible takeover of his land for establishing a tobacco factory. Gordon is the Premchand's best novel. It is an epic of the Indian peasantry. The novel tells the moving story of Hori and his wife Dhania, a peasant couple. The landlords rob their land and make them into landless labourers. Yet Hori and Dhania retain their dignity to the end. Rabindranath Tagore was another famous Bengali writer. His early novels were historical. He later shifted to writing stories about domestic relationships. He was mainly preoccupied with the condition of women and nationalism. Both concepts are featured in his Ghare Bear, translated in 1919 as The Home and the World. The story is about Bimla, the wife of Nikhilesh, a liberal landlord who believes that he can save his country by patiently battering the lives of his poor and marginal sections. The story is about Bimla, the wife of Nikhilesh, a liberal landlord who believes that he can save his country by patiently bettering the life of its poor and marginal sections. Godin the novel by Premchand, Rangbhumi by Premchand, a portrait of Rabindranath Tagore, famous Bengali writer. Conclusion. A novel is a long work of written fiction. Developments in print technologies allowed the novel to break out of a small circle of readers and introduce fresh ways of reading. Novels have also shown a capacity to include and focus on the lives of those who were not often known to literate and middle class circles. Novels became popular in England and France. Novels were first written in the 17th century. We can say that novels produce a sense of sharing and promote an understanding of different people, different values and different communities. At the same time, they explore how different groups begin to question or reflect upon their own identities. Some of the famous writers in India: Chandu Menon, Bankim Chattopadhyay and Premchand. Let's see the chapter Novel, Society and History in a quick view. What is a novel? Novel is a modern form of literature. It is born because of print, which is a mechanical invention. Henry Fielding, a novelist of the early 18th century. Circulating libraries. Novels allowed individuals the pleasure of reading in private. Charles Dickens, his Pickwick Papers were serialized in a magazine and were very famous. The growth of industry was accompanied by an economic philosophy which celebrated the pursuit of profit and undervalued the lives of workers. Hard Times by Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy and his famous novel The Mayor of Casterbridge. The novels of Jane Austen gave us a glimpse of the world of women in gentle rural society in early 19th century Britain. This is Jane Austen and this is Jane Eyre, who wrote the famous novel Charlotte Brontë.